We gotta get like some cute little intro like that. But hello and welcome to the Tinfoil Hat Society with Venus and Christopher Stolley.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And my new guest host tonight, Ryan.
Hello, everybody.
And if you couldn't tell by our show earlier, we're here to piss off YouTube some more.
Yeah, for those that are watching them individually, we literally just got done recording Realm of the Mist podcast where we discussed pretty much this exact topic, but it was enough to go on to 2 shows.
It definitely was about the YouTube banning. You're not allowed to talk about the flat Earth theory on YouTube anymore, or you'll get blacklisted. You're not allowed to talk about 9/11. You're not even allowed to talk about current events that are happening as they're happening and have an analysis of what is happening, or you'll get banned from YouTube. So we're going to do all those things tonight.
Hold on. You can't talk about the flat Earth thing anymore.
Nope.
For real.
I'll send you the link. Yeah.
I did not know that. Oh my god. How far it has fallen.
It's pretty bad. So, flat Earth, what do you guys think?
It's the most retarded thing I've ever heard. Like, we stopped believing in flat Earth back in, like, the 5th century. You know, when the first boat sailed from one end of the world to the other. You know, it's around the world, you know what I mean?
You didn't even need that. All you had to do is look at the moon when it's at a crescent. The whole object of a crescent is the curvature of the Earth being projected on by the light of the sun.
No, you're absolutely right, but I'm saying even before modern mathematics or whatever figured that part out, when a boat sailed from Japan and reached Europe without being impeded or falling off the edge, guess what? It's a sphere. You know what I mean? Type deal. Of course, I'm forgetting that there is a whole continent in the way there. You know, the United States, but the point is still there.
Well, I actually like some of the theories that these people come up with, like flat earthers. Like, they're little cool science experiments, you could do with your kids and stuff. And who's not to say that the Earth is not actually flat? Okay. It could be a hoax, but remember who's pushing this. NASA's pushing this, and NASA is pretty fucked up.
Well, the thing that, and I've talked about this a lot with people that I work with. There's a couple of guys that like the idea in an entertainment sort of way. And to me, it seems to be those that buy into it seem to be fixated on lesser truths ahead of greater truths.
No, that's exactly it. Like, if you want to sit down and have a conversation about, like, the what if the Earth was flat type deal, and for an entertainment or theoretical standpoint, I'm all for it. But when you actually buy into this, that's a whole different animal. It's just, what the hell is wrong with you? So I think out of all the YouTube policies they were throwing out there right now, I think the banning the discussion of flat Earth is probably one of the few that I actually agree with, because I think this country's getting this world, not just this country, but this world is getting dumb enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're not really educating anymore.
They're really not, and it's like either you believe in one or you believe in the other, and it's kind of like, well, I like to keep my options open, and I'm pretty open-minded, so show me what you got, okay, and we'll go from there. Like, these pictures coming from the top of Mount Everest, like, we see that there's a fucking curve, the fisheye fucking curve on this camera, okay, like, yeah, that's enough to be like, suspicious.
Right.
Is it a fucking camera, or is it legitimately the world that is shaped like that when you're half curved in this picture?
Well, if I may propose something,
please do.
I've been thinking along the lines lately that the flat Earth theory is cover for the hollow Earth theory.
I'm not familiar with that. What is that?
Oh, okay. Well, basically, so the hollow Earth theory stems from the idea that the Earth has a giant pocket in the center of it, and in the center of that is a star, and that is responsible for the gravity on the Earth, on the top of it. So this this is actually supported by a lot of very interesting things. So the current theory of the planet is we have a molten iron core about yay big at yay temperature. Everybody's been told this. Factually, the deepest we've ever gone into the Earth is 12 miles, and that was in Russia in the Kola super deep borehole.
Okay.
Which isn't really much of a, it's not barely a scratch in the surface of it. We've never gone deeper than that.
That's where they had like the pits of hell open up, right? And they were hearing people screaming and stuff, right?
Rumored. That's I did hear that. I've seen some extensive documentaries on it. The holes that they did make were no bigger than like 12 inches. They were very small. Like you couldn't really fit a person down there. They were just drill bits. Okay. But they did pull things out, mineral samples, weird microbes, some strange things, but nothing too monumental. You can actually go still see the wreckage of it, and it's all sealed up and covered up with cement and all that. But yeah, it's still there.
Now that's interesting. I've never heard anything like that. But what's funny is, like, as you're describing this to me, just the idea of a star inside the Earth, that makes more sense to me than the flat Earth. You know, because of the fact that stars do generate gravity. Our sun is what generates gravity for all the planets to stay in formation. Mm-hmm. So, you know, having a star in the middle of the Earth instead of a molten core, sure, I would more believe that.
Well,
just on a layman's terms.
Here's where it gets interesting. So, the Earth is pretty malleable. You've got this giant ball spinning through space at a pretty prominent rate of speed.
Right.
And it's not completely solid. You've got water, it's washing up against things, it's constantly changing over the billions of years per se that it's been around. So think of it like a guy in a pizzeria spinning a pizza dough, tossing it in the air. Gets a little bigger each time as it spins. The Earth is kind of happening that way, especially if we have a molten core that's heating things up, making it even more pliable.
Right.
So there's also a few problems with this too. If we're in the cold depths of space, eventually how is this heat keeping itself hot? There's got to be some more going on with it. So I'm sure the idea that it was a completely solid molten core did exist at some point in the formation of it, but at a certain point it started to get larger. Think of all these giant caverns in the belly of the Earth all over the place. We've got stuff that can contain entire cities. Things that we are so large that we can't even fathom them.
Right.
From things like lava flows going away, water pockets draining out, all these geological things. So the Nazis were very interested in this. They were very curious to
General Byrd or whatever, Colonel Byrd.
Admiral Byrd. Yeah, Admiral Byrd, Operation High Jump. There's a lot of weird things about it.
Yes, him.
Yeah, who was a legit admiral that I think it was around 1940s, did a aerial reconnaissance of Antarctica and found these green, lush areas in the middle of it. He's got a diary that you can see online. He talks about meeting some people in the center of the Earth, whether you want to believe that or not, whether it's an actual document. He was a very staunch soldier, kept his mouth shut up until his deathbed, and then that was released shortly after he died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I have to look that up.
Yep.
Yeah, they actually have insects and birds that will actually migrate to the North Pole, and they'll lose their trackers once they reach the North Pole, and everyone's like, well, where are they going?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've always known, back in the day, the poles are basically magnetized or for lack of a better term here, polarized. So, if you stood at the exact tippity top or exact bottom of the Earth and held a compass, it would go haywire because it can't find true north. Because you're standing directly in it. So a bird losing its sense of direction because it's flying over the exact North Pole makes perfect sense to me.
But they make it back home after.
Compasses on ships need to be adjusted for sailing in those waters. They have to have a 360-degree axis. So generally you can have a flat-mounted one on most areas of the ocean, you need to go vertical at certain parts near the poles. Here's another little interesting point of it. So the more to the theory of this hollow Earth is that there are two openings, one in the North Pole and one in the South Pole. There's a link I can show you. It's an experiment by NASA, and they're doing this in space with tiny bottles of water, tiny globules of water that they're spinning using an air jet, and they're doing various things to it. Most of the globules have an added surfactant to prevent the water from coalescing, so it can actually contain bubbles, so they can sort of see movement.
Right.
The interesting thing about this was all these bubbles started to coalesce in the center and make like a giant cone right through it, right where it was spinning.
Huh.
I was blown away by that. So then they did little things like break up tea leaves, bits of tablet. The tablet was odd because it just sort of stayed in place, and they deduced that it had the same density as that of water. But the tea leaves were very interesting, as they all floated to the surface of it, whereas the bubbles contained right down the center completely.
Oh, okay, so they were spinning it with the bubbles still inside it, and each thing had a different reaction to the same stimuli. That's
due
really
to its
weird.
mass,
Interesting.
So I was really blown away by that, because I was thinking of the extrapolation of a tiny globule to a giant mass of water and earth and stuff that's constantly changing, and would this operate in a parallel fashion?
That's not too dissimilar. I definitely agree with that, but I mean, there are certain factors I think with a planet like a world.
Absolutely.
You have your atmosphere, your ozone layer, and things like that are kind of help self-containing. If not the shape, at least the things that are in it. Now, besides gravity itself, I mean, those things are kind of acting like a plastic bag, if you will, keeping the contents inside the shape.
For sure.
Best example I can give is like a water balloon. But I know if you spin a water balloon or throw a water balloon, it changes its shape with the force.
Yeah, any sort of energy you put into it will undulate it and cause it to like warp or even burst if it's a lot of energy.
Well, there you go. That kind of blows flat Earth out of the atmosphere and the possibility of a hollow Earth right there. But does the flat Earth and the hollow Earth work together?
I've heard there's like dimensional things why that could happen, but that's way over my head. I haven't really followed that very much.
I mean, I can subscribe to like forgive me for using comic book terminologies here, but like the multiple Earths or the multiverse, if you will.
That's an actual scientific term nowadays.
Oh, I know. I know, but it's still more commonly looked at as like comic book theory as opposed to like actual theory, even though I know it is becoming an actual theory now. I absolutely subscribe to it. So to say that maybe in some alternate reality, maybe Earth is flat, who knows? I don't know. But in this reality, it's been proven since the Dark Ages that the Earth is round.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm totally on board with that. Put a stick in the ground, and you'll see the shadow rotate around it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But what is reality? Because honestly, okay, like psychologically, reality is like where you are within the four walls around you. Nothing else beyond that technically exists if you're not witnessing it happen, or if you're not seeing it. So, like, people could be talking about, well, this is going on in this part of the world or whatever, but it's like, well, that doesn't actually affect my reality in my living room where I'm safe. And, like, anything that you can't see beyond you is non-existent.
Well, yeah, but there's limitations to that type of mentality. Like, the best example I can give is, like, the sun rises every day. Now, you got a cloudy day, you can't see the sun. That doesn't mean it didn't rise. And it rose.
It's still completely dark.
Right, but you know it rose. It didn't just get light. It rose. It may be above the clouds, but it rose. And so even in that type of example, reality isn't just necessarily your perception. It's also knowledge. taking the time to knowledge. Like, just because I'm not standing in a forest doesn't mean I don't know there's a tree in that forest.
Well, it brings back that question, like, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it still make a noise?
Yes, because somebody heard it. Sound waves still travel.
Did it even fall? Like, was it always just there?
How about we take it back a little further than that? Do we know the origin of this kind of idea, this thought, especially the tree falling in the forest?
I don't know.
Okay,
The
so
internet?
no, not at all. So, what the audience won't know about me is I've been practicing martial arts for 25 years, and I'm trained to be a teacher from a pretty well-known guy. So to avoid any plugs, I'll stop there. But what I have read is a lot of Eastern philosophy. The tree falling in the forest one is what's called a Zen koan, or koan, if that's the pronunciation. I might be bastardizing it there. And these are mnemonic tools to possibly trigger enlightenment. You know, to basically remove the conscious view of things, the Venuses, the Chris's, the Ryans, and just see everything around you the way a newborn baby calf would, with no ideas of what colors are. Just seeing green for just the color of it without even knowing that there's a color. You know,
Right.
Going beyond the experience of, oh, I've seen that before, just soaking it in with no expectations or connotations given to yourself about it.
Right.
So
yeah.
so-
It's like hearing your mother's voice for the first time. You don't necessarily know, as a newborn baby, you don't necessarily know that this is your mother, but you know the voice. You know the sound.
You hear the emotional connotation around it. It's not harsh. It's soft. It's soothing. And you don't even know what soothing is. You just,
You connect to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's beyond words. So this is what these ideas. What is the sound of one hand clapping? You might have heard. This is another Zen koan. Or I'm Zen isn't my forte. I'm more of a classical Taoist, but I think you get the idea.
No, I get it.
I'm like trying to stay here. I'm like how physically sitting here. And I'm like one hand clapping. Like, okay, it can be done. I'm sure it can be done, but my hand isn't that loose enough to start clapping itself.
The key is to meditate with this question in mind, and the answer is experiential. It can't be explained to you.
I've seen people one hand clap before, and I'm like, I just can't do it, but they can.
Well, it almost like
Hand folds over and fingers smack your hand, and
it's almost like giving it a Western culture feel to it. It's almost like the Native American vision quests and sweat boxes, techniques used to traverse beyond the physical self.
All roads leading to Rome.
Exactly, So, for people that may have a hard time concepting what Ryan was talking about, that may be an easier way. But it like you said, all roads lead to Rome. It all pretty much leads to the same place. Is touching what is not physical in some way, shape, or form. If I'm describing that correctly.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's how everybody's heard the little internet speak about how the ancients knew about molecular composition before science did. This is true, but this is how they did it: is intuition and contemplation and imagination, in not necessarily that order.
yeah, I think creativity is another thing that's being banned from YouTube. So I guess we can
Nobody likes thinking slaves.
No.
Right?
Well, that's one of the
Then we
major.
stay here and we figure out.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say that's kind of the key point, like what we were talking about earlier with the YouTube thing. Like you just said, nobody likes thinking slaves. our education system, our entertainment, our news medias, everything else is designed to keep us just smart enough to do the paperwork, just smart enough to push the buttons and roll the wheelbarrows, but dumb enough to not question things, not take a look at the world and say, you know what, something ain't right here. We need to figure out what it is.
Which is why unions are being attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so many overlaps from all of this into society, which a lot of people see some of it and not how it keeps going.
And again, just to borrow Ryan's phrase, all roads lead to Rome.
Yeah.
That's our government. The biggest thing the government doesn't want society to do, and it's anybody's government. I know Ryan and Venus are in Canada. I'm in the United States. We have two completely separate governments, but pretty much the same problem. And that's the last thing in the world the government wants is us to uprise because we realize we're getting fucked, and how badly we're getting fucked.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, that's the reason for the pushing of gun disarmament. It's got nothing to do with safety for the public. They don't give a flying fuck about that.
No, you're right. And Venus and I just got done talking about abortions, and that was the point I was going to make. I kind of sidetracked myself, and I didn't say that, is that like people that are pushing for abortion rights that are turning around and saying if they take away our rights to get an abortion legally, well, we'll just go obtain it illegally. Well, gee, what about taking away guns? How's that going to work out?
Well, that's a very good argument. It's very fair and very balanced.
Isn't it the exact same thing? If you tell me I can't have one, does that mean I can't obtain one illegally?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I'd really like to see that black market abortion clinic pop up. Was it going to be in vans? Yeah.
Oh, it's stupid. People that make that argument. They may not have to worry
about that in Canada.
People who make that argument, like women that are making that argument. Did you see this on social medias and stuff like that? Like some of these women that are fighting for the right to choose, and like the late term abortion shit, like the ones that are making the arguments that if you take away our ability to do it, we'll just go do it illegally, are getting tattoos of fucking coat hangers.
Well, see, this is the thing. They talk about abortion, and then they'll just kind of slip in the late term abortion, and that gets me livid. And yeah, I'll out myself. I don't have a uterus, but boy, do I have an opinion on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's backed up medically, and there is absolutely under no circumstances any viable fucking reason to do a late term abortion. You could have done it at 3 months. You could have done it at 4 months. You could have done it at 6. There's no need for it. And I'll tell you why they're pushing for this. The women are just, up in arms about not having rights, or that's what they've been told about this. The real reason is fucking sickening. This shit keeps me up at night. If you want to hear it.
Go ahead.
It's nasty. Okay.
Go ahead, because our listeners, most of them that aren't going to be sitting there saying, oh, fuck these guys, I don't know what they're talking about. Most of them are looking for these types of educations.
I can back this up with governors admitting it on video.
No, please. I'm just letting you know that our listeners, the ones that aren't already closed-minded about it, the other ones that are open-minded and want to hear what we have to say, they're looking for these types of pieces.
This is ugly, and yeah, I do believe that people need to come into info at their own time. This is one of the things that can really push you forward a lot faster than you want. But here we go. So, does everybody recall the Planned Parenthood debacle of 2018? They were selling parts. No, they weren't selling body parts. Oh, it's all fake videos and news and all that.
Right.
Remember that stuff?
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, yeah, so that's exactly what was going on. Recently, they've just arrested the guys running Planned Parenthood for trafficking of baby body parts. Why are they doing
organs
this?
And stuff.
Yep. Why are they doing this? Because it's huge money. If you got a dried kidney, that's like, $10,000-$15,000. If you've got a living kidney, that's like about $80,000. If you've got a living, viable baby that just has a spinal cord cut at 9 months, and you can keep that alive, that's like 7 figures, easy. And it goes to all these corporations, these big pharma guys. who knows where these are going to.
Oh, even worse than that, they found that like stuff like that in like Pepsi products,
Oh, yeah.
Doritos,
Yep.
Lay's. They just got stopped at the border of coming into Canada, the U.S., from somewhere in Asia. What were they? They were some kind of pills.
Skin pills, things like that. For beauty
Or no,
products, there's a lot of stuff. There's so many different products they make with this stuff.
I mean, the history of Planned Parenthood is sick in its own right. Like, I can't believe these people that are pro-choice or women's rights that want to defend Planned Parenthood are the same ones that want to bitch about, like, racism and everything else. Planned Parenthood was created by racism. It was created by a person who wanted to population control and extinguish African Americans. That was what Planned Parenthood was created for, and that is actual fact. Look it up. What's her name? Margaret Sanger. That was her mission statement. That was her goal.
Thing is these girls don't know that. All they know is what Planned Parenthood's done to insert itself within the school system and give them birth control pills and condoms and advice and counseling for absolutely nothing. That's the face of Planned Parenthood. It's like a sinister type of marketing, when really they're fronting for the Agenda 21 depopulation effort. Flat out.
It's absolutely disgusting. That's why it's like as gross and negligent medically as what you're describing is. It's not unbelievable because of the history of Planned Parenthood and of course the history of the black market and the shadiness of fucking major corporations and big government. All of it ties into each other. It's a strange bedfellow, but it's still a bedfellow.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the lack of education that people like they look to the parents to teach, which they should. Parents should teach. And then they look to the school systems, which of course are going to indoctrinate. They're not teaching, they're indoctrinating. They want you to be a happy little worker, and that's all you need to be. They're not going to teach you to be a critical thinker. They're not going to teach you to be somebody who questions everything and doesn't just accept that this is how it is. They want to know why.
I think what also is important for people to know is that when they hear that, they kind of associate it with the laborers. There's different levels to slavery. You could still be like a scientific guy, and the carrot on the end of that stick for that donkey is, hey, you might have your name put down in a book one day that others will be able to read.
Well, look, you want to know your slavery? Here's your slavery. Here's your slavery. It's sitting right underneath your television right now, that Xbox and that PlayStation. It's what we're working on right now with the computer. It's in your phone right now, your little smartphone. All that shit that you fucking covet so much, you people, like myself included, that's our slavery. That's our chains. That's our bondage. Because we're more interested in that than what's really going on around us.
I would disagree to a point. Now, not everybody's usage of these things is equal. Like, I'm sure, your addiction to your devices there, you're educating yourself more than you're entertaining. Would that be fair to say?
On occasions, but I mean, it's not just that. I was just using those as examples.
Of course.
You have people that are slaves to trends, or slaves to clothing lines, or whatever the case may be. Again, it's merchandising and marketing has enslaved us, and then we created a society. We're starting to create a society that's so fucking lazy. Like I personally have you want a conspiracy theory? This is my conspiracy theory. I think the government and the big tech corporations are purposely designing this world to where we're content and happy to be trapped in our own little prisons, which are our apartments and our houses, and we never socialize and gather together as groups with other people, because why would we? We have social media. We can order food from McDonald's through Uber Eats. We have Amazon and everything else, that everything gets delivered to us. We never have to leave the house.
Well, not only that, you're out in public and you misgender someone, and all of a sudden it's this huge fucking thing, and it's like, wow, this is why we don't talk to people in public, because it turns into this ridiculous fucking thing where we started off like, oh, hey, how's it going, guy? Well, I'm not a guy, it's ma'am. And it's like, well, excuse me, can I just ask you, what's your gender? No, you can't ask me because that's rude and you should already know. But you don't know, so you go to ask, and all of a sudden you're fucking whatever the hell you are. You're a fucking bygone and all this, and it's like, well, I'm just gonna keep my fucking mouth shut. I'm not gonna say a word to anybody anymore in public. I'll stay at home where I'm safe.
But that's a personal thing I've been watching is the rise of everything that's intended to keep you home. And it almost seems like the powers that be want to turn everybody into introverts that never leave their homes except for when they're physically needed at a job. Isn't that a slave?
Yeah.
It sounds like a prison.
Basically the same thing.
Well, here's an interesting twist on that whole thing. I'm a reasonably good-looking white male. I was the weird kid. I never fit in. I was always interested in stuff that nobody got, ninjutsu, martial arts in general, reading about weird mystery spots in the world, Suddenly we're hearing about these pyramids just off the coast of the Bahamas, under the water, crystal pyramids. I was reading about that in a book that was written in 1975 when I was about 8 years old. None of this stuff surprises me right now. I went through a really hard time through high school, just still being me. Went through a harder time in my early 20s. When I got to be about my early 30s, I started to kind of really like myself and accept myself and go, yeah, I'm a good person. I like things for people, I try to help when I can.
Right.
So I got into, I guess conspiracy, if you want to call it that for an umbrella term, by stealing something off the internet that wasn't what I got. I was getting some sort of martial arts film, and I got Destroyed by Design by Alex Jones. And there's a certain kind of quality to it that I'm like, okay, I'll give this guy 5 minutes, and I end up watching the whole thing. That was a very eye-opener for me. 9/11 had happened just before that, and then I got into that stuff. And since I was always the weird guy, I could walk right into this stuff and not really care.
Right.
9/11. Okay, so yeah, the YouTube ban on 9/11. They're saying that people are saying it's a hoax and it never happened, it's not real. Okay, let's clarify. 9/11 did happen. How it happened, that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you guys obviously have seen the videos. I have a magazine, the Toronto Sun, the day after 9/11, okay? And I could take these pictures of these Al-Qaeda and time-lapse them, and they're the same guys from ISIS, which is pretty fucked up. The buildings are gone. It clearly did happen. The buildings are no longer there. These buildings blew up. Nobody could even debate that.
Well, the thing is, you just hit the nail right on the head. They could turn around and talk about they're banning the conspiracy theorists of 9/11 that Bush had the towers run down, or that it was a controlled destruction, or all the different theories that are out there. But the real reason that they're banning talk about 9/11 is because of the fact of Islamophobia. Right now, as it stands, regardless of what you believe was the actual events of 9/11. What we understand it was a bunch of Islamic hijackers from Al-Qaeda hijacked these planes and rammed them into the World Trade Center. They were terrorists. Oh, that's a terrible word. You can't say that about Muslim people, about Islam. They were Islamic terrorists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care if you don't
disappeared.
like the word. That's what they were. Okay, and because that's what they were, that's why they don't want you talking about it, because it goes against their narrative that they're pushing. Thank you. Narrative that they're pushing, where you can't talk bad about Muslims, you can't talk bad about Islam. they're misunderstood, or you don't have all the facts, or blah, 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 blah. That's why we're not allowed to talk about 9/11, because it always comes back to whether it really was Islamic terrorists or it was perpetrated to be believed that it was Islamic terrorists. Either way, the words Islamic terrorists are still in the conversation.
Yep. But just nobody's even contemplating that it did or did not happen. The same as global warming, climate change. No one's arguing that it's not happening. On a small scale, yeah, we've got our seasons happening. We've got summer, we've got fall, we've got winter, we've got spring. That happened. The weather could be whatever the hell the weather wants to be that day. We've also got the ocean tides that will affect the weather. We've got solar, what the hell are they called?
Solar flares, sunbursts.
Yeah, solar flares that are going to affect our weather. Okay, we've got just rainy days that'll make it cooler. No one's saying it's not happening. How it's happening now? Why is no one questioning geoengineering?
Because people don't know what geoengineering is. They have no idea what that word even exists. The way I have to start explaining this to people when they're saying that I'm crazy is I'm like, oh, do you know what cloud seeding is? Oh yeah, silver iodide dropped from planes. And I'm like, where do you think that came from? Farmers? Farmers just started shooting stuff up into the sky? And I'm like, no, that was early military weather control technology.
In the 1960s, they were having kids in classes help name new clouds that they were manufacturing, which must have been really cool. For these kids that are like, wow, we get to name clouds and, see how they're making them, manufacturing them. It's manufactured weather, manufactured clouds. They control the weather. They use HARP, but HARP is a conspiracy all on its own, right?
Well, you're also forgetting one thing that kind of began this podcast that Ryan was talking about when we were talking about the flat Earth theory, is that this billion-year-old planet evolves. Things change on this planet. It could just simply be change.
We've got a lot of carbon in the atmosphere. Okay, well, let's look at the past 2-3 years in Venezuela and everywhere. Hawaii is a really good example that people should have still in their memories. Look at the volcanoes exploding. How much carbon comes from these volcanoes?
More carbon than any industry, all industries combined, don't even make up half of what is released in one volcano.
Mm-hmm.
Not even a 1% of what was the rate let out in that what was that one volcano's name? Sorry, I'm half asleep. But that was 100 times million more than all humanity of all time has ever released into the atmosphere. And people are like, well, the oceans are warming. Okay, yeah, we have volcanoes on land. How many volcanoes are in the ocean?
Hundreds.
Yeah.
Hundreds that I know of.
90% of volcanoes are in the ocean, okay? Well, how do you think land was formed? Volcanic eruptions in the ocean. That's why we have islands that are just appearing out of nowhere because of volcanic eruptions, okay? This will make the oceans warm, not the air around it.
Look, I'm not saying that carbon emissions isn't a terrible thing, and that we shouldn't find a way to get rid of fossil fuel emissions and cleaner energy burn and stuff like that. That's absolutely true. We should. But is it such a dire threat as somebody idiot AOC with her 12-year plan before the destruction of Earth if we don't eliminate cow farts? No, we're not anywhere near that danger.
Well, this is what grinds my gears. Sorry.
Yeah, cows have been around for millions of years, and there was probably a lot more cows on the planet Earth thousands of years ago than there will ever be ever again.
You forget the cows. This is what really gets me about this shit. So everybody is so concerned about the planet they want to enact a Green Deal, but none of these fucking assholes can do anything about changing their fucking habits about how they live their goddamn lifestyles.
Uh-huh.
I don't buy into any of this shit. I have a super fucking small carbon footprint. I've never owned a car, ever. I'm 44 years old. I've taken public transit all my life. I've rented a car on a few occasions when I need to, moving, that sort of thing. I'm vegetarian. I don't contribute to the meat industry and their warming of the atmosphere, allegedly. Like, I'm very cognizant of taking care of the planet, but it starts with the individual. This is what people don't understand. The only solution these politicians are going to have are green taxes, retroactive green taxes. And eventually, I don't know if it's going to be our generation or the generation after that or our great-grandchildren or whatever. If CO2 is the problem, what do we exhale?
Well, don't we have a natural filter system on the planet for CO2? It's called trees. They feed off of it and in turn return oxygen.
But see,
and then they go and burn down the forests.
Wasn't that like third grade science class?
Yeah, but see, that's why they don't want a thinking populace. Because, like I've heard they're selling like bottles of air from like the tops of U.S. mountains in China for like $300 or something. Something ridiculous like that. And you just inhale this can of air.
I just have Spaceballs in my head right now where he's like sniffing the Perry air can.
Yeah.
Is it like an aerosol can? Like, do you get high off of this?
No, it was a can like a beer can, and he pops it, and it's full of air, and he pops it open, and he has it to his nose. He's sniffing it because their planet's running out of air.
Well, you do get very high from oxygen. Think about it. If you've ever been to Vegas, all they do is they pump that casino full of oxygen. That's why everybody walks in there feels freaking great. You're wide awake. You're hyper-oxygenated. You've got more oxygen than you can take in just being flooded at you.
Is that what they pump into shopping malls as well? Because I know they pump
they may. It's a known stimulus that is very clandestine. People will never know you're doing it.
See, because I like going to shopping malls and I get headaches, like just from being in there.
Well, there's a lot of fluorescent lighting, and that's known to do that.
For me, it would be if there's a Bath and Body Works anywhere nearby. Like, I don't.
God! Yeah.
I don't mind the individual smells, but the assault of all the smells all at once from that fucking store, instant migraine.
Wow.
Like if you brought one of the products out and said, "Hey, look, smell this. It's lilac." Oh yeah, that's nice. But you'd ask me to walk into that store and I'm just getting every scent all at once. It's like, oh God, get me out of here.
It's bound to induce headaches.
I hate those places the most because everything looks edible.
Yeah.
It does. You can eat half of it.
But what you
half
really
of it's edible,
want
to... I'm sure that would taste terrible.
But yeah, I mean, all these conspiracy theories, again, they lead all right back to the same thing. It's whatever it takes to keep the populace smart enough to do the jobs, but dumb enough to ever question why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like really unfortunate that like conspiracy theories, like they're theories, like NASA has theories, okay? Politicians are coming up with theories about how to save the world. They're theories. People are allowed to think, and it makes me think of like back in like the 1400s and stuff, where it was like a crime for a regular person to read.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been the same reason. They don't want people to be any smarter than it takes to work. We're propping them up.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big game from early on. And I'm sure it started with some guy living in a hut. He passed it on to his kids, and all of a sudden people were living in like stone huts. And then castles, and then...
That's exactly it. Like you said earlier with the grinding my gears. The biggest thing that grinds my gears is everything that we're dealing with in today's society, whether it's conspiracy theory, whether it's what we've discussed, whether it's the YouTube thing, whether it's the political divide thing, all of it together, it's nothing is new. This is all old hat. This shit's been going on since the Stone Ages. And we haven't learnt from it yet.
We fail as humanity.
Human beings have not figured this out yet. It's happened with Hitler. It's happened with slavery. It's happened with Napoleon. It's happened with Rome. It's happened with South Africa. It's happening in the United States and Canada now. It's the old additives over and over again. It's the exact same things over and over again, but nobody wants to see it.
I think
ignorance is bliss, right?
I think people do see it. They just don't want to acknowledge it. I think that's what's really driving the left. They know things are really messed up. They don't understand it, and they've been given a direction. And they're running like bloody hell, thinking they're the ones saving everything, when really they're helping the people that are keeping everybody down.
That's exactly it. And it goes back to it goes back to an old saying, is that all evil needs to succeed is for good people to do nothing. And whether it's by fault or by design, good people are doing nothing. And that's why this shit is still existing.
Well, it's scary to do stuff. Change is a very difficult thing for some people.
It absolutely is. Ugh, I'm getting text messages while we speak.
That's okay.
So,
I'm like just sitting here and I'm like,
things that make you go, huh?
Yeah, right.
I mean, like I know tinfoil hat's supposed to be more the really deep conspiracy theories and out there type things that normal people would consider to be out there. We're supposed to be sitting here talking like Bigfoot, or whether twins have psychic powers, or things of that nature. Take a drink. But the long and the short of it is like even things like this do not have to be sensational. It could be very simply close to home, that there's really no comparison to, or there's really is a comparison to, YouTube's new policies to Hitler's book burning.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's the exact same format. It's just updated because who reads books nowadays?
Well, most kids were raised on TV. Mm-hmm. They don't have books. I at least remember, if I was bored, here's a book. Oh, Bigfoot. Oh, ghosts. Haunted places. And I had a very strong imagination for that.
Oh yeah. I was the same way. I mean, like I was. You were talking about how you were in high school. I'm. Venus has seen me. She'll rather attest to this or not. I consider myself a semi-decent looking white male, and I wouldn't say I was a popular kid in school, but I was one of the quote unquote cool kids in school. The headbanger type and all that. But I was a closet nerd. Like I told my friends I was going out to bang some chick on a Friday night because I was meeting up with my buddies to play Dungeons and Dragons. My secret friends. You know what I mean? I was sitting in my room at nights reading about the mythology of vampires and shit like that, instead of like keeping an eye on the baseball game for that night. And I just watch the news in the morning to be able to have a topic of conversation with my quote-unquote cool friends. So I'm right there with you. I get exactly what you're talking about. Nowadays, like, it's kind of funny because nowadays it's socially acceptable to be a nerd. But back, you're 44, I'm 42, we're from the same era. You were extremely ostracized for it, so you hit it. You hit it or you dealt with the repercussions of it.
Yeah.
And I was one of those kids that hit it. But I was always into the weird shit, too.
Yeah, see, that's great. I always wanted to be able to hide it, but it was just, I was one of those ADD kids. So I didn't have my thoughts all to myself because I was on Ritalin for a good while. And then by the time I got out of that, it took me a bit to kind of like have my thoughts sort of clear themselves out. But once I was able to like have confidence, I was like, go fuck yourselves, man. Like I'm doing my own thing and I'm cool with that, and I don't give a fuck who's there with me.
No, it's absolutely it. And I probably would have been the same boat as you. if
Yeah.
it wasn't for the fact that I had an affinity for music.
Yeah.
That's what got me into the cool crowd. As I was a musician, I was a songwriter. I played in bands, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Well, no, it's always great having friends and family there, But the ultimate truth is that we're always alone. If people are along for the ride, awesome, embrace that shit. I've really gone to appreciate that lately. I've had a lot of changes in that department, and the people that have shown up and come along for the ride it's kind of refreshing.
Yeah, the whole world's a little bit different now and a lot more open to stuff like that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And like, what
absolutely.
else
If it
do we do when
wasn't-
we're sitting at home in our antisocial little apartment? It's like, wow, yeah, we're just gonna like go crazy. So obviously we go crazy in like cool directions where we're like, wow, Sumerian fucking ancient tablets. Wow, that's awesome. And we can go from there. And there's literally no one to stop us because literally everyone else is in their own little apartments.
Well, you know what? There was a saying from a very wise man from back in the 70s that I live by, and I think if I didn't follow this particular philosophy, realm of the mist entertainment wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be sitting here now having these conversations. I wouldn't have met the people through the podcasting that I've met and had the conversations like we're having right now. And that one simple phrase is simple enough, and I think people need to realize it. The saying goes, if you don't allow yourself to go crazy once in a while, you wind up going crazy. Yes, I'm quoting Hawkeye Pierce from fucking MASH.
I was wondering why that sounded familiar.
But it's probably one of the truest statements I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've always liked, in a mad world, only the mad are truly sane.
Mm-hmm. So I think that was actually the first episode of MASH, if I'm not mistaken. I have to check the archives on that. But yeah, I've basically lived my life by that philosophy ever since I've seen that episode, and I found it to be very, very true. If you don't allow yourself to embrace shit that is not normal, once in a while.
Well, what's normal? It's opinion.
What society deems or considers normal.
Yeah.
Well, society's pretty fucked up right now, so
Well,
they've
right
got
now,
no say.
Right now, but
Yeah.
even growing up before it went this nuts. If you allowed yourself to just get sucked into the political bullshit or the social justice bullshit or everything else, if you allow yourself to just concentrate on that all the time, it will destroy you. So every once in a while, go drink a beer and play fucking throwing axes at wood things at a bar. Allow yourself to go nuts every once in a while because it'll keep you from going crazy.
Have to. You absolutely have to. Like, I get so caught up in this conspiracy stuff and whatever, and it'll be like for days, it's like, yeah, no, I'm just gonna, like today, all I did was like watch Netflix all day. It's like, yeah, kind of need to relax my mind a little bit, not think so much, and just like watch other people go crazy. I actually started watching Good Girls, which is like a series which, yeah, from like this morning when I woke up at 7 till now I've been watching.
I've been sitting here with Jen watching Reba.
Oh, wow. I used to love that show. Reba's like a good TV mom.
Yeah. I got a kick out of like Van. Van, for some reason, I really attached to that character because he's such a moron.
He reminds me of what's his face from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Harvey.
You know how long it's been since I've watched Sabrina, and even more so, like you put on Sabrina now, like on Netflix, and it's like a horror show instead of the old teen comedy that it used to be.
Yeah, I haven't even watched it yet on Netflix. I watch a lot of weird stuff on Netflix, but yeah, Sabrina's just, no, it's changed too much. It's not Sabrina anymore. I just can't get into it.
No, I was never into it to begin with, but it's really weird. The same with like Riverdale. Like Riverdale really pisses me off. I know Jen's into it, but I can't stand it because, to me it's like destroying the wholesomeness of Archie.
Yeah, well, it's a whole like plot twist. I actually love that show. My daughter's like more caught up on it than I am, though. I'm like a few episodes behind, and she's like, "Oh my God, have you seen what happened?" I'm like, "No, what the hell, Mom? It's something we're supposed to be watching together." But yeah, I guess I got to get back on that.
All right, but like I just messaged you, we're at the 5-minute mark.
Yeah. Well, that about pretty much wraps up the Tinfoil Hat Society for tonight. I'm sure there's more details we could get into about different things at another time, but we'll be back next week for that. So, Ryan, do you want any Facebook stalkers or anything?
I don't really have anything set up like that just yet, but I don't know, maybe soon.
Yeah. Maybe teach them some feng shui stuff or whatever. Not feng shui. Oh my God, I'm so tired. Sorry.
Well, it's very simple. I know he's an active member of your It Had to Be Said Facebook group. So if they have any questions they want to direct directly to Ryan, they could do that probably at your group.
Yeah, that's fine. I'd be more than happy to answer if I can.
Yeah. Well, you can find me on Facebook, Venus Chan, or Solar Nova if I'm blocked. My fan page, Realm of the Mist, presents It Had to Be Said with Venus. On Instagram, Venus Uncensored, or you can email me directly, venusuncensored@gmail.com. And we'll be back on Tuesday with It Had to Be Said with Venus, and Wednesday with Realm of the Mist.
And, of course, as normal, guys, you can find me right here on Realm of the Mist Entertainment or wherever quality podcasts are heard. You going to give your outro?
That's all, folks.
There you go. All right. We'll see you on the next Tinfoil Hat Society, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh,
No
thanks for
problem.
joining in. It was fun.
It was.
Hey everyone, this is John Tolley, inviting you to check out a Star Wars podcast. Each week, me and my co-host Christopher Stolley discuss the news and theories surrounding one of the largest franchise movie franchises in the world. So join us every Wednesday at 8 Eastern as we travel to the galaxy far, far away, right here on Anchor FM and wherever fine podcasts are heard.
When you need CBD, vape juice, or new mod, go to Vape Scorp. 10859 Boston Avenue, Philadelphia, PA 19116. They have all your needs, the equipment, all the juice. And hey, while you're there, sit down, enjoy a beer, and just hang out with a bunch of cool people. So guys, if you really need your next vape machine, or maybe you just want to try locally made juice, make sure you hit up Vape Scorpion. That's 1085 Boston Avenue, Philadelphia, PA 19116. Or give a call to 215-464-273. Oh yeah, and make sure you let them know that Realm of the Mist Entertainment sent you.
Why didn't the Three Little Pigs go in for some kind of flat share scheme?
Does Jesus get to choose which wine he turns it into?
Why don't Sims have the body strength to climb out of a swimming pool?
And does everybody really want to be a cat?
I'm Will Baker.
And I'm Alex Prescott.
And if you're the type of person that overthinks these deep philosophical questions, then Think to the Brink is the podcast for you.
From Disney characters to song lyrics, debates to social etiquette, tune in every week for your dose of paralysis by analysis.
All topic suggestions are welcome. If you can think it, we can overthink it. Think to the Brink. Available on all podcast platforms.
Hey everyone, this is Dak.
This is Liam.
And this is White People.
We are a bi-weekly podcast.
Whoa. Maybe I'm straight and strong.
It means twice a week, you douche.
Oh. Yeah, listen to us twice a week. On White People Wednesdays, we talk about gay stuff, zombies, superhero sex positions.
And on Featured Peep Fridays, we interview the Featured Peep of the Week.
Yeah, like a fucking furry.
Search S Podcast and look for the white dude in red pajamas.
We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, YouTube and anywhere else you can.
We live in equal opportunity humor, where all things can be made fun of. So if your feelings get hurt and you're offended, you can always
Eat a dick.
He said, but she said, how dare you say that? That's offensive. Well, someone's gonna say it. It had to be said with Venus. Catch the live show Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Check out the recordings at any time. Shows weekly. Listener, beware. Mature content, sexual content, trigger warning. Do you dare say it?
Hi, my name's Chris. And I'm here to tell you about this podcast. From this podcast, we talk about all the great entertainment things, from movies, music, books, comic books, and many other forms of entertainment. Politics, current events, general humor, and having a good time. If you're looking for a podcast up your alley, look no further than Realm of the Mist podcast here on Anchor.fm or where podcast can be heard.
Hi, this is Dave from the Comic Collection at 83 Bustleton Pike in Feasterville, Pennsylvania. Our phone number is 215-357-3332. We are right next to Northeast Philadelphia. We have action figures, gaming, statues, albums, and CDs, graphic novels, other knickknacks, and, of course, comics. We are your go-to store. Come by and say hello, and say that the guys from RadioCast FM Radio sent you. The address again is 83 Bustleton Pike, Feasterville, Pennsylvania, or call 215-357-3332.
Three-eyed turtle? Is that alright?
Oh, fuck the three-eyed turtle.
Who wants mustache ride?
Are you tired of the same old podcast, no humor? Well, just for After Hours, where everything is funny to least us. On Anchor.fm and where quality podcasts are heard.
How the fuck did we get on this?
I don't know.
Fucking FCC started this shit. It's their fucking fault.
Yay, Dad's home! Golly, Pop, we have been waiting all day for you so we can listen to the radio.
Daddy, may we listen to Chronicles of the Lost Realm?
But I want to listen to the Lone Ranger.
No, son. You know we only listen to the highest quality, high fantasy, chaos-fueled podcast around.
Oh, shucks.
Chronicles of the Lost Realm podcast. High fantasy chaos for only the most discerning ear. Join us every other Friday to hear what crazy antics these players get into next. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and give us a like at Chronicles of the Lost Realm. Don't forget to check for us on YouTube, coming to you soon.